Hey lovely ladies, this week's Anonymous Q's. Thoughts on intermittent fasting is number one. Number two, I'm struggling with diet nutrition wise to help with getting rid of stubborn belly fat and bloating. And question number three, why the caffeine cut off at 3 o'clock. So, thoughts on intermittent fasting. So intermittent fasting is just a tool to make you adhere to your calorie deficit. So if we want fat loss, right, we need to be in a calorie deficit. It doesn't necessarily matter what way we're in that calorie deficit, right? So, and like everything, there are features and benefits of any process that you follow that is going to help you stick with your calorie deficit, all right? So, fat loss in general comes down to overall calorie balance, which means you need to eat less calories than your body needs, which is calorie balance and energy, by the way. It can also come down to the quality of the food that you're eating, although it is absolutely possible, I've said this before, absolutely possible to drop body fat while eating shite, basically. So it's very possible to eat 2 McDonald's a day, be in a calorie deficit and lose body fat. Would that be particularly good for your health? No, it wouldn't. But it depends what your goal is. So fasting as an intermittent fasting. So for anybody that doesn't know, intermittent fasting is picking a window throughout the day, one window throughout the day, and in that window you eat all your food for the day. So for example, you could pick an 8-hour window of between 11 o'clock in the morning and 7 o'clock in the evening, and you would only eat in between 11 and 7. So you're pretty much skipping breakfast. So if you think about sometimes when you go on holiday and you maybe have a long lie, you don't go for breakfast in the hotel or whatever, all right, and then you just eat a lunch and a dinner or a brunch and a couple of snacks, right? In theory, that's intermittent fasting. So it helps certain people stick to their calorie deficit because it cuts down their opportunity of time to actually eat. Another thing it can do is it can actually clear your brain space. So if you know that you will not be making any food decisions out with 11 in the morning and out with 7 o'clock in the evening, then that can also make people, it just makes it easier for a lot of people. For me, it's a nightmare for me, right? I need to eat in the morning, and I don't like the super restriction. Sometimes I do just like to actually eat when I'm hungry, so I don't actually like the super restriction. But for some people, it absolutely works. What I don't want you to do is get confused with when, like, a lot of people say, oh yeah, do you know, the best way to lose fat is to do intermittent fasting. It's not. The best way, the only way to lose fat is to be in a calorie deficit. But if you're going to pick the method that's going to keep you in a calorie deficit for longer, therefore you get better results, intermittent fasting suits you, amazing, knock yourself out. Maybe you don't eat breakfast anyway. All right. So, but it simplifies eating, right? So it gives us a shorter opportunity, it clears up brain space, it gives us a shorter opportunity to fret about food or stress about food or eat food. And for some people that works, and that's amazing, all right? However, it can also reduce mindless snacking as well, because if you've got it in your head that you can only eat between 11 and 7, you're going to have your dinner as close to that 7 o'clock window as you can, and then you can't eat after that because you've said that you're doing intermittent fasting. And for that reason alone, that works for a lot of women as well, all right? However, it can backfire, especially for midlife women. So what it can make us do is skip meals and then we overeat later on, right? So quite a lot of midlife women that come and work with me don't eat breakfast, right? Now, they don't eat breakfast so that they can save their calories for later. So they'll have their lunch at 1 o'clock, which will be minuscule because they're saving their calories for later. They'll then have their dinner, and it's usually a heaped, gigantic plate of food. And then they've still got 600, 700 calories left. So therefore they're giving themselves a free pass to go back into the kitchen and eat 600 to 700 calories worth of shite, which is effectively skipping meals and overeating later on in the day, all right? So that's not particularly healthy. Providing you're still in your calorie deficit, you will absolutely lose body fat, but it's not particularly healthy, mentally wise and physically wise. So you need to have a think about that. Also, it can absolutely affect your energy during the day. If you're up at 6 o'clock in the morning, 7 o'clock in the morning, you're going to work, you're going to walk the dog, etc. You're maybe going to go to the gym, but you're still not eating till 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock. Remember, you get to pick your window of opportunity. If you're not eating till 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, your energy levels are absolutely going to tank. So it can be not helpful to keep you focused, to keep your energy up throughout the day, to keep you fueled throughout the day, and to cut down on brain fog and stuff, because we need food for our brains, all right? The other thing that it can do is, if you do train in the morning, but you've decided that you're not going to eat till 11 o'clock in the morning or 12 o'clock in the afternoon or whatever, it can increase your stress hormones because you're not giving your body a chance to recover after exercise, all right? And sorry, that just reminds me of a conversation that I had with a lady the other day when she said to me, my son's concerned that I'm overtraining, right? It is very, very difficult to overtrain. It is really, really easy to underfuel and under-recover. So if you're training in the morning, you actually need to eat something, preferably before, something tiny, definitely something after it. So it needs to fit in around your lifestyle, all right? But again, your intermittent fasting could be between 9 and 5, or it could be between 8 and 4. If you go to bed early, that might work for you as well. So just, if it's for you, that's fine, right? But just remember, it is the tool for the calorie deficit. It is not actually the diet, all right? Sorry, intermittent fasting as well, like I said, it is a tool, right? It's a bit like paleo. So paleo focuses on whole foods and removed processed foods, all right? People do not lose body fat by doing paleo or keto or slimming clubs or plant-based and vegan or meal replacement. What the fuck, meal replacement, all right? People lose weight and drop body fat by being in a calorie deficit. The tool that you use to get you and keep you in that calorie deficit is entirely up to yourself. Right. Any questions on any of them, obviously give me a chat, give me a message. And second one, I am struggling with diet, nutrition-wise, to help with getting rid of stubborn belly fat and bloating. So 2 separate topics there, all right? Stubborn belly fat. You will never get to decide where your body loses the belly fat. Never. You could do any number of diets in the entire world and you will still never get to choose, all right? Your body will lose fat where it loses fat from. There's nothing you can do about that. You have absolutely no control over it. The things you can control are the quality of food that you put in your body, the calorie deficit that you're eating, and the way that you dress to disguise that thing that you don't like. So if you have a lot of belly fat and it makes you feel uncomfortable, obviously I'm not a fashion editor, designer, marketer, influence or whatever, right? But if you've got a lot of belly fat and you don't like it, wear high-waisted trousers, high-waisted skirts, high-waisted shorts, get tummy tuck pants, etc. All right? Just, you know, if you've got a lot of loose skin on your underarms and you really don't like it, just don't wear sleeveless tops until you can work on your confidence alongside your diet, fat loss, whatever it is you're working on, gym, strength, whatever it is you're working in, all right? Work on your self-love, and until you've got that self-love to understand that belly fat, flabby arms, whatever, don't actually matter, all right? Then just dress accordingly so that you feel confident when you're going out the door. Right, anyway, belly fat. Right, so you will never, never, never choose where your body is going to lose belly fat from, all right? I have lost and kept off 26 pounds, right? I still have 2 tummies. When I turn side on, I still have flabby belly fat, all right? Will I get rid of that? Well, if I'm willing to go into even more of a calorie deficit, and don't know if I am, so you need to make peace with your decisions, all right? Anyway, calorie balance over time. This is where belly fat comes from. Will you lose belly fat in a calorie deficit? Yes. Will you have a 6-pack? Depends how hard you're willing to go, how solid you're willing to be with your calorie deficit. Lower muscle mass, all right? So When we speak about body composition, that's about changing your body shape, I would say. So your body composition is different from a diet. If you are in a calorie deficit and just dieting, so as in not strength training, all right, you will lose body fat. You will change the size of your body, the width of your body, the narrowness of your body. You will probably not change your body composition. So you will not increase your body muscle. That was not the right terminology, but you won't necessarily increase your muscle. All you'll do is reduce your body fat. And there's nothing wrong with that. That is a good place to start, all right? So lower muscle mass. So the more muscle you have, the more calories you burn. So it is in everybody's benefit, especially us midlife women, to lift weights while you are on a fat loss journey. We all know this, all right? If you must have been living under a rock if you don't know that midlife women should be lifting weights, but we do all know that, all right? Belly fat is also controlled by hormonal changes in midlife, right? So when our estrogen dips, our body, our brains and our bodies are very clever, right? So when the estrogen dips, we store fat in different places, right? And also the body fat cells in our mid area, right, do a very poor job of producing estrogen. They do produce a little tiny bit, not enough to replace the estrogen that's dropped out of all our other cells and stuff like that, all right? But that is why a lot of midlife women, why we have menobelly, or what we call menobelly, all right? So hormonal changes in our life makes us store fat in different places, which is why you might find that you've always had a flat tummy and now you haven't. And it's down to your hormones. And again, there's nothing we can do to directly control that. We can do things to make ourselves feel better, like working on our body confidence, dressing to disguise the part of our body that we're not in love with yet, and the quality of our food also, the quality of our food can make us feel more bloated, which makes us think that we've got more belly fat. That's what I was trying to say, sorry. And again, by the hormones, stress and poor sleep. When we are stressed, cortisol is released. Cortisol makes us store body fat, yes, you guessed it, in our belly area. Poor sleep, when we have poor sleep, our stress levels increase, which increases cortisol, which makes us store belly fat in our tummy area. So yeah, it's quite hard. Again, it's an individual thing, all right? So that is belly fat. Actual bloating, right? So bloating is often with the type of foods that you're eating and your digestion, all right? So if you have poor digestion, then you might feel bloated, but you also might be eating certain foods that don't agree with you, right? And I'm not about to go down the route of IBS and gluten intolerance and FODMAPs and all that malarkey. If you've ever got any questions on them, by the way, just pop them in the anonymous Qs. So certain foods not agreeing with you, right? You would be absolutely amazed at the amount of women that I know that have and that know they have an intolerance to gluten and still eat it and then tell me that they're bloated. Yeah, there are things that we are. There's a lot of people that say that they've got IBS or they're gluten intolerant and they're not, right? They're absolutely not. And by the way, the only way you will ever find that out is to cut it out your diet. No hair strand test, no skin patch test, no blood test will ever tell you that you're intolerant of something, all right? Allergies are related to your skin. If you're getting a patch test for an allergy, absolutely brilliant, all right? There is nothing, no test in the world that will tell you that you are intolerant. The only test is to cut that one thing out for at least 8 weeks, nearer 12 weeks. Then you need to introduce it back in. If it doesn't make a difference, you then need to start the whole process again with the other thing that you might think that you're intolerant to, all right? There is no test for intolerances. Anyway, so if you have an intolerance or an allergy to that certain food, please do not eat it. All right, it will not be helping with the bloating. You don't know what it's doing inside, right? If you eat quickly, you might get bloating. Of course you might, because when we eat quickly, we intake air, that expands our stomach, all right? It makes us feel bloated, all right? Highly processed food, things like takeaways, pretty much takeaways, do you know? Yeah, a lot of them will cause bloating, and it's because they're just filled with shit, all right? And I'm not saying you shouldn't eat highly processed food. I love highly processed food. Do you know the amount of money that the marketing companies and the food companies have spent on finding out the stuff that our body and our brains love? Sugar, all right? It makes highly processed food very tasty, all right? Just eat it in moderation. Alcohol, again, the amount of midlife women that I speak to that tell me that they're bloated and then tan a bottle of wine every night, all right? Obviously, there's a correlation there. Of course there is. And again, I'm not saying you should stop drinking. Just cut it back. Just try it. See what happens. See how you feel. It's just an experiment, all right? And then again, gut sensitivity. And again, if it's an intolerance, you need to cut that thing out. That is the only way that you will find out, all right? So bloating, things that can often help, all right, is try and cut back the highly processed food, the alcohol, the stuff that you know that's not good for you, all right? Prioritise your protein. Get loads of whole foods in, so unprocessed food as much as you can. Fibre. Yeah, if you're going to increase your fibre and you find that you are bloated, you need to increase it gradually. Absolutely gradually, all right? Fibre is a very funny thing, not funny haha, but it can be a bit weird. So there are certain conditions out there that a high fibre diet is not good for. And if you ever suspect that fibre is playing a problem with your bloating, then you need to go to the doctor, all right? There is such a thing as FODMAPs. I mentioned them briefly before. There's a lot of things that's like pulses, beans, lentils, and the allium family, so onions and leeks and all that, can cause bloating as well. So just be careful, all right? Slow down when you're eating. Sit at the table. Put the telly off, focus on what you're eating. All right, managing your stress and your sleep, massive, very underrated, but massive. And then reducing ultra-processed foods, snacks and alcohols, all right? But just to clarify, you cannot spot reduce belly fat. And on that note, you could absolutely go in the gym and do 3 million sit-ups a day. You'll still not reduce your belly fat, all right? Finally, why the caffeine cut-off? So 3 p.m. cut-off for my fat loss clients. You have habit trackers fill in. There is a 3 p.m. caffeine cut-off. The reason that we do that is because caffeine has a half-life. Look, this is me sitting here with my cup of tea, by the way. Look at the state of that mug. Anyway, I'll wash that when I finish my tea. Makes the tea taste better, no? Anyway, right, caffeine cut-off. So caffeine has a half-life. So it basically means that half of the caffeine that you consume. So when you drink a cup of coffee, right, it's a diuretic, so you'll go for a pee, all right? But half of that caffeine will stay in your body, it will stay in your bloodstream for at least another 5 hours, so possibly another 7 hours. So if you're having a coffee at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, half that coffee is still in your system at 9 o'clock at night, right? This is why it can affect your sleep, all right? So it can be circling around. If you have a coffee at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, that could still be in your body at 10 o'clock and 11 o'clock at night. Of course that's going to interfere with your sleep. Of course it is, all right? Even if you can fall asleep easily, the caffeine, the half-life of the caffeine can still disrupt the quality of your sleep. It can make you wake up in the middle of the night. Definitely. It can also make you feel less recovered. It makes you feel like a burst ball the next morning. And what do you do when you wake up in the morning like a burst ball? Hit the coffee. Of course you do. I have half a pot of coffee every morning. And I have a takeaway coffee, either out the gym or when I'm walking Jasper, but it's never usually after 10 o'clock in the morning. All right, so if you can cut your caffeine back to earlier in the day, I'm not saying cut it out. If you're going to drink 5 coffees, knock yourself out and drink 5 coffees. We'll have a conversation about that later. But if you can bring it forward a bit, all right, you're going to have more energy. You're going to have better hunger regulation. Quite often when we're hungry, we don't want to eat the calories, so we just have a coffee. You'd be better health-wise having a couple of baby bells or a couple of slices of ham or something, but you will understand your hunger more. And because you have proper restorative sleep, your fat loss will happen quicker. True story, my lovelies. All right, that is our 3 anonymous questions for this week. Thanks very much everybody for popping them in. If you've got any questions on any of these subjects, just give me a shout. All right.